Hello and welcome back to Aetheral Space 17.1, Nehr, and we're back to welcome back to Arc 17 as well.
Back? This is the first time we've been here.
Yeah, you don't remember?
Oh,
The other loops.
This is the true ending for Arc 17. How many failed loops were there?
This time, definitely.
I'll definitely make it happen. Actually, stopping the Prince's big 9 days scheme would be a time loop plot.
Yeah, so that was how we ended Arc 0 as well. The Prince is like, we're almost there.
Just a few more days, PogChamp. Right,
just one more war crime, bro, I swear.
This will be it. This will be the one they remember him for. Whew. Alright, without further ado. The nights on Nehr were quiet, especially outside of Zipan. Nehr was dark. Nehr was cold. And yes, Nehr was quiet. Just from looking at the endless expanse of grey dust, it would be tempting to think there wasn't even any air on this world. Perhaps there hadn't been, originally. Perhaps the master of this planet had done something to make the planet more habitable. But then again, if he had, why make the planet's one and only city such a fortress? Zipan was a city composed of several huge modules, a civilization prefabricated. The population centers, wards 1 through 8, were bottle-shaped structures massive enough to house entire districts of serendipity, arranged radially, like spokes on a wheel. Ward 1 rested at the top, while Ward 8, the only one uninhabited, languished at the bottom. So does it only fill half a wheel, or is it like 2 and 3 are across?
They're arranged around the circle.
Right, but if 8's at the bottom and 1's at the top, does that mean like one side has 4, 5, 6, 7, and 2, 3, 4?
Yes, there's a slot missing somewhere.
Gotcha. The population center... okay. Ward 1 rests at the top of Ward 8 on the bottom. These structures were linked by an advanced tramway system, the vehicles moving through tunnels between the wards rather than venturing outside. While the transport system was advanced, more efficient than anywhere else in the galaxy, it was also heavily regulated. It was a rare occasion when someone from one ward would be permitted to travel to another. On Nehr, everything was heavily regulated. And the one who did the regulating rested at the center of that wheel. Oberon, the headquarters of Zipan's government and personal residence of the director of the Pandershi Foundation, Zephyr Pandershi, towered over the wards surrounding it. It was a mess of cylindrical towers of various heights, like a growth of artificial coral, its surface lined with surveillance instruments and data transmitters. With Ward 1 serving as their antechamber, Oberon, or rather Zephyr Pandershi, saw all and controlled all. Despite the darkness of Nehr, the city of Zipan was bright and shining, the ambient glow from the exterior of the city pouring high up into the sky. Not even the dust that blew on Nehr's meager winds could mar Zipan's radiance. Legions of automatics crawled over the outside of the city like spiders, cleaning away any blemish within seconds. This sparkling kingdom was a place that rejected anything that did not belong to it. Somewhere in that fortress, Zephyr Pandershi waited, with his personally scouted security forces. Somewhere in that fortress, Nyan waited with the other members of Darkstar. Somewhere in that fortress, Dragon Hadrian waited, reduced to a head. Well, maybe not that last one. Ruth Blaine clung to the side of a building as she poured aether into her eyeballs, infusing her vision so she could see the outer shell of Zipan even from this great distance. The old familiar skeletal set clung to her form. In this alien landscape, its curiously light weight was a comfort. Plus, any set stronger than this would attract undue attention. From what she understood, Zipan had once been part of a much more spread-out city, back when Nehr had been a mining colony. When Pandershi had taken control of it, the population had been concentrated into the current complex, with the infrastructure left behind rotting away over time. The immediate surroundings of Nehr had been cleared out by heavy-duty automatics, but a ring of rusted buildings and streets still encircled the city from a distance. From the edge of that ring, Ruth looked out over the no-man's land, and saw what she was looking for. A service hatch had been opened on the exterior of Ward 6, and a convoy of vehicles was clearly being assembled outside. It was distant, but as far as Ruth could see, the centerpiece of the convoy seemed to be a massive truck, with smaller escort vehicles surrounding it. Those guarding it seemed to be automatics too, although they weren't any models that Ruth was familiar with. She narrowed her eyes. Whatever they were taking, where were they taking it if not Z-Pan? It didn't look like they'd be setting out for at least a little while longer anyway. Best to get a second opinion. There weren't any trees on their moot, and they'd taken most of the resources when they'd relocated to Z-Pan, so making a campfire would have been difficult. Luckily, Ruth hadn't come here alone. She'd come here with a toy Musazi. One of his thrusters blazed with light and heat deep within the stripped-out corpse of what had once been a supply depot. The man himself sat before it. He'd seen better days. The battle on Serendipity had taken its toll on him. He'd lost his right arm for one. The stump had been crudely cauterized and bandaged, and the exhaustion of the events only a couple of days ago were nothing to be scoffed at. The half-face mask he wore had been broken and lost during their escape from Z-Pan, so when he looked up at Ruth's arrival, the burnt side of his face was on full display, artificial eye pale. "Did you see anything?" he asked, his voice rough from thirst and fatigue. "They're getting ready to move something," Ruth replied, demanifesting her armor as she sat opposite him. "Vehicles and guards, a big truck and a bunch of automatics guarding it on bikes. Don't know where they're heading, though." Musazi considered it for a second. "I expect Pandershi has other facilities on this planet for his experiments. He wouldn't want anything going wrong too close to home, after all. Were you able to see what they were transporting?" That's my attempt at making him sound rough from hunger and thirst. The fact that Ruth finally had information was a blessing. Atoy Musazi and Ruth Blaine had once been enemies on the opposite sides of the struggle against the supremacy. Even now they were only aligned by coincidence and convenience. If there wasn't intelligence that needed to be dissected, they'd probably just be sitting here in awkward silence forever. Or killing each other. They'd both tried at least once in the past. Nope. Ruth shook her head at Musazi's question, but it was half-hearted, and soon enough she continued. "But it's gotta be, right?" Musazi frowned. "It has to be what?" "Come on, man. Him." "Hadrian?" It was Musazi's turn to shake his head. "I doubt it. The Supreme is a high-value prisoner, the highest-value prisoner there is. If they were moving him, and I don't think they would, they'd have put far more resources into it. Members of Darkstar, I'd expect, not just automatics." "Well, maybe that's what they want us to think," Ruth insisted, leaning forward, her excited face illuminated by the pale campfire. "Zephyr Pandershi's meant to be a genius, right? He could have anticipated our moves and shit. They could just drive him right past without us realizing." Musazi's frown deepened, and he adjusted his seating position slightly, wincing at the movement. "I want to be clear about something, Miss Blaine," he said. The excitement faded from Ruth's expression, and she leaned back into the shadows again. "Right. I believe we're here with different goals in mind," he said seriously. "We haven't discussed this in words, so I think it's important we do so now. From what I understand, your goal right now is to retrieve Dragon Hadrian. Is that right?" She nodded. "It is?" "That's not my goal," he said. "My goal is to retrieve Aklaima. That girl has suffered a great deal because of me and my foolish ambition. To put it bluntly, I couldn't care less what happens to Dragon Hadrian. In fact, if I were to cross paths with him here on Nehr, there's a fairly good chance I'd try to kill him myself. I'm not going to seek out that outcome, but I think you should be aware of it." Ruth said nothing. "I'm not naive enough to think you're just trying to retrieve Hadrian as a nebula of the UAP to try and bring him to justice," Musazi sighed. "You actually want to save him, don't you?" She nodded. "Why?" he asked, genuinely confused. Her answer was simple. "He's my friend." Musazi shook his head. Forgive my saying so, Miss Blaine, but he has a funny way of showing it. He nearly killed you when the Dells heads back on Serendipity. I'm sure he ensnared you in all manner of mischief back on Azumha. He may be your friend, but I don't know if you are his. Ruth shifted position, resting her arm on her mechanical knee. These metal legs, no matter how long she had them, she'd never truly get used to them. Part of her would always be back there, on Elysian fields, in the moment she'd taken that attack from Avamen the announcer. The war thundered on in her heart, the war where she and Dragon had fought as comrades. Was that why she couldn't just give up on him? The girl you want to save, she said quietly, Aklaima. You said you made her suffer. Did you ever promise her something, and then break that promise? Musashi closed his good eye, the artificial one still staring forward. Not in so many words, but oaths were made, he confessed. I didn't honor them. I stole from her to take for myself. Yes, I suppose I did break a promise. It was the same for me, Ruth said. I made a promise to Dragon, and I didn't keep it. I can't give up on him until I see the promise through. I won't be satisfied otherwise. They sat there in silence. The thruster between them blazed quietly, silver light dancing across their faces as they looked into it. In the flames, perhaps, a fortune could be told, a clear answer they could take in their hands and follow through on. But no, just fire. Just a patch of burning dirt, like so many more across the galaxy. It won't be him, you know, Musashi finally said. Ruth looked up at him. Could be Aklaima, she replied quietly. Musashi clenched his fist. Damn you, he whispered. The convoy set off half an hour later, and they were ready for it. It'd be too risky to attack the convoy in the no-man's land surrounding Zipan.
Oh, yeah.
Zipan. The city's exterior defenses would lock onto them quickly. Even if the massive guns perched atop each ward didn't eliminate them, reinforcements wouldn't be too far behind. The members of Darkstar weren't accompanying this transport right now, but Ruth expected they'd turn up quickly if an opportunity to eliminate the fugitives presented itself. That woman McCoy, for one. She'd managed to sculpt a replica of Cadman's weapon from corpses. Weakened as they were, Ruth didn't imagine it would take McCoy nearly as much effort as that to exterminate them. So, they'd wait until the convoy was passing through the city ring, and attack using the buildings as cover. Since Musashi was injured, they'd fight with Ruth as the main attacking force, with him concentrating on fencing the enemy and using his thrusters. When it came down to it, these were just automatics after all. Ruth didn't expect it would take much to deal with them. The real problem was what came after. Even if they weren't in immediate range of Zipan,
Yeah, I don't know after
defenses.
How could I forget with the beautiful naming sense of the city?
Yeah. Ruth wasn't stupid enough to think they didn't have some way of monitoring the vehicles and automatics they'd sent out. As soon as they started the attack, they'd have to act fast. Disable the vehicles, destroy the automatics, get the trucks open. A 3-step plan. It was doable. The wind blew through Ruth Blaine's hair as she waited atop the skeleton of a skyscraper, perched on the topmost girder like a bird of prey. The world was a bloody red through the eyes of the skeletal mask, and her skeletal claws dug into the metal beneath her. She couldn't risk using Emperor here and attracting too much attention too quickly. Her original armor would do just fine. It felt like it had been a long time since she'd fought in earnest with skeletal alone anyway. It was nice. A return to simpler days. They didn't have any communication equipment, so Ruth and Musashi just had to trust that the other one was competent enough to get the timing right. Well, that was fine, too. She'd thought many things of Itoy Musashi over the years, but she'd never thought he was a dumbass. She didn't know if the opposite was true, though. Well, she'd just have to trust that he trusted. Her breathing light and eyes silent, Ruth watched through those bloody lenses as the distant convoy set off, and minute by minute became less and less distant. She took proper stock of it as it came closer into view. There were 2 trucks. The big transport one she'd noticed immediately, obviously holding something important, and then a smaller one that was probably carrying supplies. The bikes, 6 in all, zipped and weaved around the vehicles protectively, ridden by automatics of a type that Ruth didn't recognize. They were big guys, each at least 9 feet tall, their thin, white faces and spindly structures making them look like fellow skeletons. They looked strong enough, but that wasn't what caught Ruth's eye. There was something oozing out of their shoulders, a kind of black liquid metal pooling down their backs before rising back up in defiance of gravity and slithering back into their chassis. It made it look like each of the 8 automatics were wearing living dark cloaks. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Ruth suppressed a shudder. Whatever these things were, Pandarshi had probably cooked them up himself. She couldn't take them lightly. Right as the convoy was passing beneath, Ruth tensed up, ready to launch herself like a bullet down below. But the enemy beat her to it. One of the automatics was upon her before she could even blink, leaping off of the bike and up into the sky with monstrous agility. It swung a spear and she raised her claws, and as they collided, they were both sent flying into the building behind them. Glass and stone flew into the air above as the convoy accelerated below. Clearly they'd intended to get to a safe distance while Ruth was being distracted by the automatic, but she wasn't attacking anyone. Oh, sorry, she wasn't attacking alone. My apologies.
It's like, I have no enemies, so I'll hand to the automatic.
Sorry, I'm like out of it. This is... Radiant lustrous! A wall of shining light blades erupted from the road in front of the convoy, and the bike-riding automatics leading the charge didn't have time to brake. They were sliced apart by the stationary radiance, chunks of bike and chunks of automatic scattering across the concrete. The other vehicles skidded to a halt as another wall of radiance burst out behind them, fencing them in. As 3 of the skeletal automatics assumed defensive positions around the central truck, the other 2 leapt away to assist in the pursuit of Ruth. Ruth swung her claws, and her enemy thrust its spear. Again and again and again, their weapons clashed, sending sparks flying through the dilapidated building around them. It was frustrating. Ruth knew that if she just used Emperor, this thing would be a speck of dust. No, she reminded herself. Use your head. Oh, sorry. As their fight continued into the building, through what looked like it had once been a boardroom, with a long, rotted wood table, the automatic changed. It looked like there was some kind of telescopic quality to its joints, and so as they entered this more cramped space, it reduced its own size to adapt. It was still huge, a head taller than Ruth, but it was no longer stupid huge. "Fuck off!" Ruth snarled, channeling her aether into her right claws and swinging them at the automatic. It blocked well, raising its spear, but even so the impact was enough to send it skidding all the way to the other end of the room where they'd first entered. There was no time to celebrate the breathing room, though. As the automatic straightened up, silhouetted against the light of Musazi's radiance below, it was joined by its 2 comrades. They raised their own weapons, a katana and a pair of hand axes. The blades were blood-red and steaming. Ruth let out a breath, and the 3 automatics stared at her, their eyes glinting crimson. "No time to waste, Ruth," she told herself. "Quit playing around. You're not that tired." She was just about to leap forward, to start slashing and slicing until no enemies remained, when something happened. The lead automatic, the one she'd been fighting originally, cocked its head at her. Its jaw snapped away on a hinge, revealing the black bar of a speaker beneath. And it spoke, in a grating, mechanical voice. "It killed my brother." Ruth blinked. "No, I didn't," she said, frowning. The automatic did not reply, and the other 2 began talking as well. "It went in the trees. Don't let it get away. Has anyone got bandages?" They had that same voice, cast in a pitch outside the range of human vocal cords, but there was something about it. Not just the bizarre words, but the way they said them. It felt like they were making fun of her somehow. "Okay," Ruth growled. "Time to stop yapping, assholes." "Please, my baby." Ruth leapt forwards, running along the surface of the table. She infused it with aether as she went, making sure it could take her weight. And right as she reached to the end of it, she flipped backwards to dodge a swing of the first automatic spear. She didn't land on the table again, though. Instead, she seized hold of the light fixture above, hanging off of it like a monkey. The first automatic hopped onto the table to pursue her. That was a mistake. Ruth had released her infusion on the table as she had dodged, and that was far from able to bear the automatic's weight. With a crash, the wood collapsed, the automatic sprawling as it lost its footing. Ruth wasn't nice enough to let a chance like this go. Sneaked. Her claws danced upside down as she switched to hanging from her legs, and a second labor, the severed head of the automatic, was in her hands. Sorry, I'm struggling a little bit.
You okay?
No.
Do you want me to put the a little bit?
I'm going to try and make it to the end of this bit if I can.
Okay.
The katana wielder...
Give you the slap cheek thing. See if that wakes you up.
The katana wielder and its axe-hefting comrades moved together, attacking from both sides. Darting back down to the floor, the head tucked under her arm, Ruth flipped what was left of the table and blocked the katana wielder's path for just a vital moment. Then she retreated backwards from the flurry of slashes the axe wielder unleashed, emerging out of the conference room and into the break area beyond. The axe-wielding automatic charged forward in pursuit, and Ruth spiked the severed head right at it with her leg like a football. The impromptu projectile was charged with her crackling red aether, audibly buzzing as it flew through the air. Whatever it hit was going to have a bad time. The automatic leapt to the side, allowing the head to fly through the wall behind it. But that was just what Ruth had been expecting. When the automatic had been distracted, Ruth had demanifested and remanifested the claws of her skeletal set. Only when they reappeared, they were no longer attached to her gauntlets. Instead, they formed a chain of interlocking blades that she whipped out with one hand and wrapped around the break room's fridge to form a makeshift flail. From there, all Ruth Blaine had to do was swing. The top half of the automatic's body was obliterated as the infused fridge swept through it, scattering electronic innards all across the room. The automatic's legs continued walking for just a few shaky steps before collapsing as well. Ruth let out a breath as she reeled the fridge back in. "No, I loved him!" The katana wielder lunged through the smoke, passing through Ruth's flail range instantly. She released the fridge and returned the claws to her gauntlets, raising them up to block the swing that had been intended to cut her head in half. The two of them pushed against each other, the skeletal face inches away from the skeletal mask. "When the hell is the shuttle getting here? You said any minute!" Suddenly the automatic brought its body low, trying to sweep Ruth's leg out from under her skeletal set, but the entirety of her armor, manifested on a single leg as a lump of indiscriminate metal, easily blocked it. Skeletal set! That same armor moves as one to Ruth's right hand as a twisted boxing glove, one she thrust down towards her opponent. Metal screeched and tore as the automatic raised its hands to block, and as it retreated, its right arm and katana went flying away, roughly ripped apart. It jumped back once, twice, putting distance between the two of them. For a second, Ruth thought it would try to escape entirely and regroup with the rest of the convoy, but no. Instead, it raised its open left hand, pointed it towards her, and fired it like a rocket. I'm gonna have to popcorn.
No worries. The unexpected nature of the attack meant that Ruth was a second too late to react. Before she could blink, the disembodied hand had slammed into her mask, fingers curling around her temples and latching on tight. A high-pitched beeping began to sound out from the hand's wrists. It didn't take a genius to work out what was about to happen. Shutters narrowed over the automatic's eyes as if in pleasure. "You're fucked." Boom. At the same time as the explosion went off, the automatic went to take a single step backwards. Only its foot never quite managed to reach the floor.
Tan? Wrong,
Yeah, it's intentional. It's a robot.
Oh, okay.
I did write it as the right one originally, but I thought it would be funnier if it was the wrong one. It made me laugh. You're fucked. There was a flash of red, and a second later the automatic's body collapsed to the ground, cleanly sliced in half diagonally. Ruth's Blaine, now standing unscathed behind her fallen enemy, grimaced as the black liquid cloak splattered across her legs. In her hand she held the weapon that had dealt the finishing blow, a sword crudely formed from the fused-together claws of her skeletal set, just as she'd done with the chain earlier. As for the bomb, that had been a little trickier. If Ruth had switched out her skeletal helmet for a noblesse one, her face would have reflected the impact of the explosion and been spared damage, but the rest of her body would have borne the brunt of it. If she put on the entire noblesse set, that would have dealt with that problem, but the floor around her would have been destroyed. There was no telling how far she'd have been sent falling, and the entire building could have collapsed on top of her. So she'd had to think outside the box. She'd manifested the Noblesse set around the explosive hand itself. Normally that would have been useless. The Noblesse set didn't reflect attacks from within the armour, but Ruth had taken that into account. She'd manifested the Noblesse set inside out, so the interior was facing outwards and the exterior was facing inwards. That way, when the explosion went off, it was reflected in all directions and essentially cancelled out. It made a big boom sound, to be sure, but Ruth hadn't even felt the slightest bit of heat. Ruth let her sword become claws once again. Turning things into swords was Serena's thing, after all. If she kept going like that, she'd have to start paying royalties. Ruth had expected to have to fight the other 3 automatics when she got back to the convoy, but it looked like Atoy Mizazi had beaten her to the punch. 2 of them had been sliced apart, smoke still rising from the molten metal, but for the 3rd it looked like the full moon had lost his patience. He'd spawned radiance around the enemy, and then sprouted more radiance from those, and more radiance from those, until there was a tower of light blades in the middle of the road, impaling the automatic from all sides. It didn't get much more destroyed than that. As Ruth approached the now defenceless trucks, the radiance disappeared, letting the skewered and burnt husk drop to the ground. "I thought you were meant to be taking it easy," she said as she approached. Mizazi was using one of the bisected torsos as a chair, elbow resting on his knees as he caught his breath. He definitely looked pale. "Would that I could," he said quietly. "What?" Ruth raised an eyebrow. "You didn't think I'd be coming back?" "We're in unknown territory," Mizazi replied. Well, no, that wasn't actually a reply, he just dodged the question. Ruth took in a deep breath before deciding to just let it go. "Well," she said, hands on her hips as she turned towards the vehicles. "So the victors go the spoils, yeah?" It was just as they'd expected with the first truck. Food supplies, water and clothes, things like that. If there were other research facilities on Nehr, these were probably for the personnel there. Ruth and Mizazi helped themselves. It had been a day since either of them had eaten, and then loaded up as much as they could into bags they tied together from the clothes. Then there was the main event. The 2 of them stood before the back of the larger truck. "I'll do the honours," Ruth said, stepping forward. There wasn't any time to waste. There was no telling how long they had until reinforcements arrived. Ruth's skeleton claws appeared over her fingers, and she dug them right into the middle of the sealed truck door, slowly but surely prying it open. It resisted for only a moment, and then she was able to fling it open, the sound echoing throughout the empty city ring like a gunshot. In the back of the truck was a person, a human being, just as they'd hoped. But it wasn't Dragon Hadrian. It wasn't even a climber. Instead, strapped into a capsule at the back of the truck, was a brown-skinned man with long dark hair. His head hung down. He was clearly unconscious. Tubes were implanted into cybernetic ports all across his body, running into liquid tanks above the capsule. Ruth blinked. "Who the hell's this guy?" she asked. Mizazi took a step forward, lifting the man's hair up with a hand so he could get a good look at his face. His brow furrowed for a moment before his eyes widened. "What?" he said. "What?" Ruth echoed, much less surprised. "Who is it?" Only now that his hair was out of his face, it did kind of look familiar. Ruth put a hand to her chin, considering it, and found her mind cast back to the memory of a particularly loud neighing. Lowercase, not the name, the event. She frowned. "Hold on," she said. "Didn't this guy try to blow me up?" "Riansh Patel," Mizazi confirmed, baffled. "He was part of the citizens' organisation back on Talden. I fought against him, and briefly alongside him. I assumed he'd managed to slip away into obscurity or went on the run. What's he doing here?" This was the last person Ruth had expected to find in the back of this truck. She threw up her arms. "Well, what do we do now?" Mizazi considered it for a moment. "If Pandershi wants him for whatever reason, then I certainly don't want Pandershi to have him. Help me get him out." The 2 of them worked to get Patel free, undoing his straps and removing the tubes one by one. They weren't exactly doctors. Black liquid sprayed out from the ports and the tubes were roughly tugged out.
They done Abyssal Knighted him.
And even tiny insects seemed to skitter out of some. Oh, Rance, my guy.
He was a knight. He just wanted to protect Noel.
Finally, though, they managed to get the unconscious man out of the capsule. Ruth supported his limp body on one shoulder. "Right," she said. "The reinforcements will probably start searching this place once they get here. We should head to the other side of..." I don't know how to really convey this in audio format.
It's like a skull emoji made out of redacteds, but 2 of the redacted blocks are red.
You can feel some killing intent.
Space Invaders.
She stopped speaking. She stopped moving. For just a second, she even stopped breathing. It was the same for Muzazi. Out of the corner of her eye, Ruth could see his pale face caught in a moment of crisis. As one, they finally turned their heads and looked. Something was coming. Something was roaring over the horizon. Ruth had expected Pandershi to pull out all the stops for a Nebula and form a Supreme candidate. She'd expected a damn army of automatics, backed up by aerial and land vehicles with Aether users too. Maybe some lab rats that Pandershi had cooked up, even members of Darkstar. He'd sent one person. One person, on a bike, coming towards them from Zepan at frightening speeds. A colossal plume of dust was rising in their wake, kicked up by their passage. They'd arrive in only 2 minutes, maybe even less. Miss Blaine, Muzazi said seriously, you should take Mr. Patel and run. She swung her head around to face him. Are you crazy? I'm injured, he said sharply. It'll be more difficult for me to escape. You're in good enough shape to get away with Mr. Patel before our pursuer arrives. There isn't time to argue, Muzazi snapped. Am I wrong? Ruth hesitated, but only for a moment, before pulling Patel over her shoulders and turning away. Before she went, she said one last thing. Don't die. Muzazi smirked. Don't worry. We're not close enough for me to sacrifice myself for you. Ruth set off full speed, and the city became a blur around her. She didn't turn around. She didn't trust herself to. Instead, she sped down streets. She didn't sped down speeds. She did access the speed force, apparently, now. Instead, she sped down streets, weaved through buildings, leapt from rooftop to rooftop, putting as much distance between herself and the wrecked convoy as possible. The smoke from the convoy had long since disappeared from sight by the time Ruth stopped. But she didn't stop by choice. She fell. Blood sprayed from a clean cut on Ruth's ankle, and she fell right on her face in the middle of the courtyard. She skidded along for a good few metres. If not for her Aether, she probably would have left half her face behind. Patel's unconscious body flopped to a stop next to her. They caught up? As she went to pick herself up off the ground, she heard a voice. No, she heard voices. The same voice, more than once. The voice she'd come here looking to find. I got her. I cut her, said Dragon Hadrian, close to her ear. Her? Are you stupid? Obviously it's not one of us, then, said Dragon Hadrian, standing over her. Lift her head up, please. I believe I recognise that individual, said Dragon Hadrian, high up in the sky. Ruth Blaine looked up, and Dragon Hadrian's
They got married?
That was quick. And Dragon Hadrian's looked down. Dragon Hadrian, with his thumb in his mouth, squatting on the ground and staring at her.
Wonder why Hadrian?
Dragon Hadrian, in a white suit and hat, looking down at her like she was dirt on his shoe. Dragon Hadrian, in a pale kimono, floating in the sky and staring at her without motion.
Oh, that one's Eisen Hadrian.
3 different Dragon Hadrians, side by side.
Who's white suit and hat Hadrian?
Well, we will surely discover more.
We have Wonder Weiss and we have Eisen. What's the second one?
Oh, no, we'll discover.
Yeah.
Aetheral Space 17.1, Nehr Moot. How you feeling?
I'm still a little groggy, but I'll try my best.
Day 1.
All right. Day 1. I will retrieve the Supreme myself, said Alexandrius Toll, Ascendant General of the Supremacy. The tiny First Minister of the body, made huge by his hologram, raised an eyebrow at Toll's sudden proclamation. Oh? It's a little early in the discussion to just decide that, don't you think? Toll's glare hardened. You misunderstand the situation. I'm not proposing anything to you. I'm simply informing you of what is going to happen, and that's a level of consideration I'm not obligated to give you people. The communications room was dim, illuminated only by the 3 massive holograms that towered over the Ascendant General. The so-called 3 wise men, desperate for dominance, they knew they couldn't win, made sure that the hologram systems for flagships like this displayed them at an impressive size. It was a repulsive attempt by the weak to mimic the markers of strength. Such a harsh young man, the red-robed second minister, already tall in person, now truly loomed like a vulture. It's a shame. Things would go much more smoothly if you cooperated with us, you know. More smoothly for you, Toll glared. I don't take that into consideration with my decisions in the slightest. The third minister chuckled. The Inman wasn't minuscule like the first minister, or gangly like the second minister. In fact, he seemed like a fairly normal person just from looking at him. A man of average height and average build, with brown hair and brown eyes. That mundanity in itself was his abnormality. That and the fact that he stood with the other two wise men. They always appeared as one, a single beast with 3 lying heads. "Gentlemen," he raised a calm hand, "we should know by now that trying to change the Ascendant General's mind is a fool's errand, right? So let's hear it, Alex. What's your reasoning here?" Alex. Like they were friends or even colleagues. Like even being in the presence of these parasites' voices didn't make Toll feel sick to his stomach. He swallowed his bile and answered tersely. "First," he said, "the Supreme is our sovereign. Our duty is to come to his aid." I'd say it's rather ambiguous if is this the tall guy?
Yes.
I'd say it's rather ambiguous if he is still our Supreme, don't you think? The second minister said. That position is for the strongest. I find it rather hard to believe that the strongest is someone capable of being captured by the enemy. The law of succession is that the mantle of Supreme is transferred once the Supreme is killed, Toll replied, not defeated. So long as he is still alive, he is still Supreme, and our duty is unchanged. The first minister raised a finger. Yes, of course, very good. Only I must disagree with my esteemed colleague. My apologies, esteemed colleague. Unnecessary, the second minister chirped. It's the mark of a good working relationship when people are capable of disagreeing with each other like this. Please proceed, esteemed colleague. Thank you, esteemed colleague. Your grace in the face of adversity is an inspiration to us all. The point! Toll forced the aggravated words out. The first minister's sly eyes flicked back to look down on him. The question isn't whether or not he is still supreme, he said, as if explaining something very simple to a child. It's whether he is even still alive. The whole galaxy saw him as a severed head, after all. That's often considered fatal. Even if it wasn't, he fell into the hands of that man Pandershi and the Dark Star rogues right after. Who knows what cruel fate he might have already met? It's sad, but true, the third minister interjected unwelcomely. It's not ideal to host another Dawn contest so soon after the last one, the second minister sighed. But mayhaps it's a blessing in disguise. A reset, from all this pointless aggression we've been seeing recently. Toll took a deep breath. I'll choose to ignore that blatant treason, he finally replied. At any rate, the safety of the Supreme is not the only reason I'm going to Nehr. It will also benefit the supremacy as a whole. The first minister pursed his lips. Uh-huh? In terms of technological advancement, the greatest jewels... Thank you. The greatest jewels in the galaxy are the Paradisus branch of the Final Church and the Pandershi Foundation, Toll explained. Since Pandershi replaced Monadere on the UAP's Central Governing Council, they've been able to catch up to us in weapons development and defense technology in barely any time at all. Hell, maybe they've even surpassed us in some areas. Careful now, the third minister muttered. I've spent the morning speaking to what remains of the AWL about this, Toll continued. They all agree. Nehr is a treasure trove of scientific achievement. Whoever seizes control of it will enjoy a great advantage in the coming war. If we can capture Pandershi alive, we can even put him to work for us. With Pandershi having discarded the protection of the UAP, there's no better time to strike. How wonderful! The first minister slapped his hands together. You've actually put some thought into this, it would seem. Toll ignored the barely veiled insult. And finally, Dark Star. With that one word from his own mouth, his composure nearly broke. But he clasped his hands tight behind his back and kept his heart in its place. They are a threat to the supremacy, Toll said simply. If you deny that, you are a fool. Until now, it's been impossible to locate the group as a whole. Cadman forbade us to execute their leader, and once he escaped, they slipped into the shadows again. Right now, though, we know exactly where they are. With Pandershi having destroyed all ways in and out of the system, there's nowhere for them to run. We'll never have a better opportunity than this. An opportunity for justice. An opportunity for vengeance. The face of a child bled through Toll's mind just for a moment, before he stuffed it back down. No doubt the 3 wise men understood. Toll had spoken of the Supreme, and Toll had spoken of the supremacy, but this grudge was what was driving him to Nehr more than anything else. At the start of this meeting, he had said he would retrieve the Supreme himself, but everyone present knew what he had really wanted to say. I will kill Nehr myself. The three wise men glanced at each other, query and response packed into their inscrutable gazes, and a moment later the First Minister smiled. You argue well, Ascendant General, he said benevolently. Very well. The body will approve your mission and grant you use of the Axel Alexander, with which to reach Nehr. I don't need your permission, Worm. I'm already on the Axel Alexander. I'm already on my way to Nehr. Even with that running through his mind, though, he just gave a stiff nod. His point had been made already. Anything beyond that would just be arguing for argument's sake. Only, the Second Minister said. Toll frowned. Only what? We must consider the possibility of us losing both the Supreme and the Ascendant General. That would be truly disastrous, don't you think? Myself and my esteemed colleagues believe you'll require additional manpower to ensure your safe return. Toll's frown deepened into a scowl. As such, the Third Minister took over, we've taken the liberty of employing the services of an accomplished warrior to serve as your bodyguard in this conflict. Please enter. I'm not doing this guy.
Yeah, I'll do his speech, don't worry.
The doors behind Toll slid open, unwelcome light pouring into the chamber. His scowl deepened even further as he looked over his shoulder. Just as he'd expected, the man standing there was the person he'd least wanted to see. Zune the Immortal, Commissioner of the Special Officers. His monkey-like tail I guess he got a promotion. His monkey-like tail waved in the air behind him. His mouth opened into a greedy grin. Sheesh!
Yeah.
Oh, you got it. No, please.
He opened his mouth. Ascendant General Toll, what a pleasant surprise. It certainly has been a while since we last saw each other. I shouldn't say that, should I? Well, it's not that I'm unable to say. I have a mouth and tongue and vocal cords just like anyone else. Well, just like most people. But rather that it'd be shameful of me to do so. It's not true, after all. Now, I won't say that lying, or rather providing incorrect information, because that can sometimes be unintentional, is always a dishonourable act. I'm sure good deeds have been accomplished via dishonest means, but in this case it would just leave a bad taste in my mouth to continue with that sort of misinformation floating around. So, I'm going to go through the true untruths I gave you, because it wasn't my intention to lie, one by one. First, the first thing I said, not Ascendant General Troll, although I suppose that could be an untruth, since Ascendant General certainly isn't your first name. But instead, the fact that I said this was a pleasant surprise. Oh, please don't misunderstand, I didn't mean to cast aspersions upon your character. Whether the surprise is pleasant or unpleasant has little to do with you personally. Whoever was standing in this room when I arrived, I'm certain my train of thought would not have changed. I'm very confident in the workings of my own brain, you see, have been ever since I was a child. No, what impacts the quality of our meeting are instead the circumstances. Our Supreme is captured, our Shishinaga in rubble. How could a surprise like this, no matter how pleasant the company involved, be anything but unpleasant overall? Next. Oh, hold. I know I said next just now to move immediately on to the next topic, but I don't want you to think I'm rushing you or anything. I have the utmost respect for your time, Ascendant General. Please understand that when I say next, it's just because I want to keep the information flowing, not because I think you're failing to keep up or lagging behind or anything like that. Quite the opposite. I think you're quite intelligent. I always enjoy our conversations, and I hope you do too. That's just my hope, though, so don't feel obliged. It's not good mentally for too many hopes to come true, as you can start becoming conceited. Guess correctly long enough and you start thinking you're commanding, right? You are a commander, so that may not be too off the front mark for you, but for little people like me, that can quickly spiral into delusional thinking. Anyway, I said it'd been quite a while since we last saw each other, but that's so ambiguous, don't you think? We exist inside the same command structure, so I'm certain I've seen you and you've seen me very recently, just not at the same time. Even if you weren't in the military, I'm a public figure, you know, you'd probably see me in the news somewhere. It would be the same with our positions reversed. That is to say, with me as a member of the public and you as a government official, not me as the Ascendant General and you as the Special Officers Commissioner, although that is another interesting scenario. At any rate, hello. Toad clenched his jaw.
Why do you write this character? Why has he risen so far in the ranks? I can't believe that anyone in a position of power would let him be anywhere.
Live. You can tell Zune the Immortal generally believes he deserves to live.
In any corporate environment, they would find a bullshit reason to fire this guy in like 2 weeks.
Would you like me to continue, or would you want to...
Yeah, this is your punishment now.
Okay. What do you mean my punishment? My punishment wasn't reading it?
You have to keep going.
Once he'd managed to escape from Zune's verbal bombing campaign and finally ended the call with the three wise men, Tull marched down one of the corridors of the Axel Alexander, Pax by his side. His Abraphasadian second-in-command, while Gregor is away, hurried to keep up with Tull's long strides. The Axel Alexander was the third, now the only, ship in supremacy with an onboard light point, and the newest of them. Named after the legendary pilot of the Zayla Morhan, who boasted state-of-the-art facilities and systems. If you had to get into enemy territory as quickly as possible to launch an attack, you couldn't ask for a better chariot. 3 days, and then they'd be standing on the surface of Nehr. You were right, Tull grunted as they walked. They sent Zun to keep an eye on us. Any more prophecies you got for me? Pax ran a finger down his temple. The death marks got heavier all around us as soon as Zun boarded the ship, he said quietly. What are the bodies planning to have him do? It doesn't bode well. Well, Tull smirked, that's where we've taken measures of our own. Your younger siblings. As the two of them passed through an open doorway, those very siblings were visible among the soldiers in the cafeteria beyond. Short figures, their identities concealed by grey cloaks and basic silver mask. There was no disguise quite as convenient as an Abraphasadian. They told everyone that those two were Pax's younger brother and sister, Lax and Tax, here to assist with the mission. That was absolute bullshit, but everyone pretended to believe it. In truth, they would be the countermeasure against Zune's plotting.
Who is Zune again?
He's the guy who was just yapping for a page.
Gotcha.
He's the new commissioner of the special officers.
That's right.
Despite everything, Tull felt sorry for Caesar. That woman had worked her entire life to turn the Special Officers Commission into an institution of prominence in the supremacy. She would be rolling in her grave if she could see what had become of it now. A puppet of the body, headed up by a literal dancing monkey. They deal with Zune, Pax nodded slowly. When we arrive on Nehr, then, what's the greater plan? How do we deal with Hazard, for one? Tull answered without hesitation. Gregory's taken the initiative to infiltrate Darkstar's ranks. When we arrive, he'll be in a prime position to sabotage the enemy forces from within. We couldn't ask for better conditions. Pax looked away for a moment, but said nothing. Is there an issue? Tull asked. No, Pax shook his head, expression concealed behind his mask. Only, if that's the case, do we really need the prisoner as well? You think he's a risk? I think he's unpredictable. Tull snorted. Those are big words from a precognitive, but predictable or not, he's a powerful asset. And not the sort of person to turn down an advantage. Pax. We're using him too. The two of them stopped in front of their destination, a massive set of doors that led to the Axel Alexander's tertiary cargo bay. In truth, though, it had already been converted into a holding cell. Tull glanced down at his subordinates. Make sure that the honest men are prepared for anything that might occur during the voyage, he said seriously. I have some negotiations to perform. Popcorn?
Oh, yeah. It was deathly cold inside the holding cell. If not for his aether bolstering his body, Tull expected his pungent internal heating would have had to go into overdrive. But it only made sense that they hadn't bothered keeping this place warm. After all, the creature being contained here wasn't the sort of thing to care about hot or cold. In the center of the long and cavernous cargo bay, cleared of all else, was a cage. A cage bound with loops upon loops of neverwire, such that if the prisoner tried to escape, it would only end up destroying itself. The cage was equipped with a burn module too, capable of incinerating its contents in 3 seconds flat should the need arise. With the prisoner, you could never be too careful. There was no telling what it was capable of. Oh, the voice of something that was not human echoed throughout the cargo bay, and Tull stepped forward to meet it. He couldn't see the speaker from out here. Right now, all he could see inside the cage were strings. Countless thin strings of each and every color, like a massive spider web. Perhaps that web was concealing the prisoner. Perhaps it was the prisoner. After all, Wu Ming wasn't exactly limited to a human form anymore. I have a proposal for you, Tull said carefully, looking deep into the cage. We're on our way to the planet Nehr. We'll be conducting an operation there. If you assist, I'd be willing to grant you your freedom. It didn't sound like he was biting. Fair enough. Toll knew how the minds of people like this worked. He had experience dealing with Cadman. There are many powerful enemies there, he continued. The man called Nyan and his Dark Star, Pandirshi's Unseelie. There will be quite the battle. I can assure you, you won't be bored. Toll frowned. He'd honestly thought that the Clown of the Supremacy would take more interest in that, but he sounded like he was barely awake. He racked his brain, but it didn't take much thinking for the next carrot to find its way into his hand. Atoy Muzazi had been taken to Nehr along with the rest, and if Atoy Muzazi was trapped somewhere, then it was a safe bet that Morgan Noct will be on Nehr soon enough, Toll said. Your protege, I understand. That doesn't interest you at all? For the first time, a note of interest entered Wu Ming's voice, and he stepped forward into view. Toll's eyes widened fractionally. Wu Ming certainly had changed since the last time he'd seen him. Black lips smiled. The first thing Toll was reminded of was a mime. Wu Ming's skin, or rather the strings that formed his skin, was white as chalk, while his lips and the diamond-shaped marks around his eyes were black as ink. His long hair was dark too, worming its way down his back in several solid tendrils. The only thing he had for clothing was a simple pair of suspender pants, the straps up over his bare shoulders. And yes, he was smiling, but at the back of his gaze in the far distance there was something that might have been exhaustion. Was something done to him? Why is he so different now? A real 7 out of 10 proposal there, Toll.
He never says 7. He never goes as low as 7. That's like IGN.
Yeah, Wu Ming said, his words lazy and slow. Sounds like fun. I'm in. His smile widened into a grin. So let's make a contract between you and me. The sun was rising over Serendipity. Is this like Black Dog? Like, what is this? Is he like
Black Dog? Well, last time we saw Wu Ming, he got captured by the Supremacy. Well, he was about to get captured. We can presume that happened.
They put nanobots in him? Why
How
is he
could
weird?
they? Maybe he's just not feeling it.
Yeah. The sun was rising over Serendipity, but Bruno Del Ced had never felt lower. He sat atop one of the skyscrapers that had survived the Shishinaga's bombardment, looking down at the rescue efforts below. The UAP was in dire straits. They'd lost numerous nebula in the battle. They'd lost numerous nebula to Nehr, and they'd even lost Nebula 1, turned into a solid statue to save the city from the Shishinaga. There was no telling if he'd even be able to come back. So much destroyed, so many dead, and for what? At the very end, Bruno had reached out his hand and he'd found it empty again. Why couldn't he ever just keep hold of anything? Serena sat down next to him. Hey, Bruno mumbled back. It was strange. He didn't even have a human body anymore. His avatar was just a sculpture made of barriers. But he swore he could feel fatigue right down to his bones. Bones he didn't even have anymore. A bitter smirk rose to his lips. Lips he didn't have anymore either. And Atrice wanted me to see if you were okay, Serena said gently. Bruno looked up, surprised. She did? I think you thought you were going to jump off. Or I think she thought, presumably. Yeah. I think she thought you were going to jump off, you know? Because you're so sad? Bruno's sister had never been the most tactful person in the world. He just barely managed to stop his smirk from becoming a genuine smile. You wouldn't even die, though, so I don't think she had to worry, Serena continued, since you can fly, you know? Bruno failed. He chuckled with just the tiniest bit of humor as he swung his legs off the edge of the building. Soon enough, though, it became just another sigh. The two of them sat there in silence for a while, watching as the sun slowly lifted into view, watching as orange light began to wash over everything. Even after a day like yesterday, Serendipity was a beautiful place. It was like that orange light could just clean everything away. Bruno wished it was like that anyway. Serena spoke up first. I'm worried about Miss Ruth, she said. Bruno nodded silently. Are you worried about Mr. Dragon? She asked. I'm worried about everything, he replied quietly. What's happened, what's going to happen next. But what's the point? No matter how much I worry, it's not going to change anything. We can't do anything. We can't reach them anymore. And I still can't stop worrying. The next words out of his mouth were hesitant and treacherous, words he'd never have dared to say to anyone except Serena. I think maybe I'm tired of trying. She said nothing. He said nothing. They didn't need to say anything. The fires below, the smoke above, the devastation within, it all told the whole story. You could only lose so many times before you got the fight kicked out of you. Bruno Del said a voice from behind them. Serena Del said. Bruno turned at the same time as Serena. Oh, never mind. I did the voice totally wrong.
She's putting on a voice.
How could I have known, to be fair?
Oh, yeah, no.
There, standing on the other side of the rooftop, was a little girl wearing a spherical helmet. One of the surviving Nebula 9, Luna from Aber Facade. Someone who could see the future. Would you like to try one more time? She asked. Bruno blinked. Bruno swallowed. Bruno cursed. Damn, he thought. There's really no helping me after all, is there? Bruno spoke. That's how I feel sometimes, Bruno. I get you, buddy. It's like, why am I still doing this trying thing? Up and I'm trying again.
That's the human condition.
Is it?
Yeah.
Many people don't. Alright, we have questions.
And those people aren't human.
I actually had a big... Whoa, don't say that. I had a big question I was going to ask you, but I can't remember what it was. I thought of it mid-reading, and the reading took so long I forgot it.
I'm sorry.
It's gone to the aether. To the ether.
Say that again?
Wait.
Because, say that again.
We have a lot of aether questions.
We do, yes.
Quite a number of them. Starting with Rurum, who asks, how does Stee Kindred stack up against Tomfoolery?
Tomfoolery would win, I would say, but it would be a fight. It would be an actual conflict between two individuals. It would not be like an instant win.
Who's Stee Kindred again?
He taught Ash Dalduran. So he's got a lot of knowledge, but in terms of actual skill, Tomfoolery would come out on top.
Rurum asks, since May Miracle saw Albert Reyes collaborating with Dragon, what does this mean for the Lesser Chain as a whole?
Well, they know about this. May Miracle has not reported this as of yet. But they are aware that he was in league with Dragon, and the Lesser Chain is in trouble, and their government is currently doing the full stop. It wasn't us, it was these guys.
Yeah, they found their victim.
There is there is a big scapegoating operation.
Just one bad apple! Just one bad apple! In a good system. That is the Lesser Chain.
Albert Reyes went crazy.
Rurum 48
got shot in the
head. He shot himself in the back of the head 17 times. Rurum asks, now that there are vacancies, are any previous nebulas going to be reinstated? If so, could you give an example of one?
This has not yet been decided because it happened yesterday. So things are still in
I love the idea that it's like, I know the citizens are starving and in pain and everything's destroyed, but we need to elect our new favorite bodyguards.
For power scaling purposes.
It's like, in Bleach, they still don't have those 3 guard positions filled. 3 captain positions, I mean. Lan asks, does the princess processing power, how many sims it can run at once, etc., depend on the strength of its host's aether?
To a limited degree, but it has modified and improved itself over the host to be more efficient. So at this point, it will be very similar regardless of who has it.
Rurum asks, can 2 principality users communicate through it, like a little forum or IRC in Gansi Relay chat? That's good. In their databases by uploading message data to the right folder?
Absolutely they could, yes.
Oh my god, how many love letters do you think are in there? That's so sweet.
Quite a few.
Oh, and everyone can read them?
In the Aethernet.
Oh. There's a whole forum for Anonymous, this is the last text I never sent you, the unsent project. How many people do you think are very emotional on the Principality Network?
Quite a few. What do you mean, just in general?
Well, also, the another funny thing about the Principality Network, right, because everyone has it, is,
yes.
You can kind of just, low-key, why would you ever publish a book? You could just put it on there, and it's well, now it's there.
I mean, the other person, that means everyone who reads it needs to have Aether and a Principality there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your audience, while still big, is still limited.
Lan asks, why is Ludwig Lanark so cracked? Is this ability an Aether glitch?
So the
glitch?
prior Nebula one, So basically, his ability is very good, but there's a lot of prep work required for it to be so good. So he's doesn't spawn these puppets himself. He has to actually get these made out of apex wood, finds it, and it requires a puppet body and an aether armament to combine. So if the puppet body isn't very good, or the aether armament isn't very good, the puppet isn't going to be very good. So it's more a fact that he's managed to like work his way up to Nebula Wance's position of influence, where he can get these materials to be so cracked.
Wow.
So, if you were like just attack him, and he himself is not that strong, his puppets are stronger than him.
Rurum asks, are any of Ludwig Lanark's puppets still around as collector's items or memorial items?
There's probably a few floating around, yeah. Like, I imagine after like he died for whatever reason, well, actually, because he passed the prince on, that we know his cause of death by the fact the prince still exists. I imagine, like, maybe even the Maker Guild would have got their hands on him. It's like, can we get the fucking armament out of this thing?
We break this thing open, and we ruined it. Maroom asks, did Atela asexually reproduce before the prince transferred out?
She did not, no. That line is over. It did not require it to continue.
Oh. Alright, let's end it there, I think, for now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions done.
We've begun Arc 17. I was talking about this about Darnell before, but the break is going to be shorter than originally expected. Maybe.
Calling me Darnell, heartbreaking.
I'm sorry, Skipper.
I can't believe this.
I'm sorry, I'm such a piece of shit.
Sigh.
I make him read 25 pages and I don't even get his name right.
I didn't even read all of them. Man, that one took a lot out of me.
I'm sorry.
But thank you all for watching. It was a good one, though. Thank you all for watching, and hey, we'll see you next time, huh? Bye!
Bye!